Thank you very, very much, everybody. Welcome to ADWEEK House. I'm Will Lee, the CEO of ADWEEK, and it is a tremendous privilege to be joined here by two of the absolute legends of the advertising and marketing.
At least in their own mind.
In everybody's mind.
You're a legend in my mind.
David Bell and Sir Martin Sorrell, joined by another legend, Michael Beebe, the CEO of Dstillery, and he'll share the history. I'm really just personally so grateful that these three gentlemen agreed to do it here. It's an idea that Michael and I spoke about several months ago, and it's finally coming to fruition, so it's very exciting. Obviously, we hopefully you read the feature we did with Sir Martin. He was very kind and generous with his time. And David and I have a history, or rather, I have a history with him when he was the board member of Time Inc., where our board chair at ADWEEK and my mentor, Rich Batista, was the CEO. And I'll just say this quickly. David gave a speech to a leadership retreat at one point, and he used the expression, it was about culture in the time of a comeback. And he used the expression, tortoises only beat hares in fairy tales. He used another word in there, which I won't say because it's a family recording. But I do, and I've used that ever since. And so he's been an inspiration, as has Sir Martin. So please enjoy, give a very warm welcome to David Bell, Sir Martin Sorrell, and Michael Beebe.
Thank you, Will. Thank you all for being here. This is an exciting moment for me as well in my career. I aspire to legend status, but I still have a long way to go.
You were a very annoying analyst, I remember.
I'm still equally annoying.
He was truthful. He was truthful.
And there is a lot of history. You know, I think many of you in this room probably have history with these two gentlemen because these two gentlemen have been part of the industry for so long. In fact, I was doing the math, and I think that their collective careers round to 100.
Making it sound like Cristiano Ronaldo.
Round to 100 years of experience running ad agencies.
Yeah,
I won't say whether I'm rounding up or down. We'll leave that for you to figure out.
And look what happened. We have two ailing agencies that are our legacy.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about that today. And so my history with these two gentlemen began very early in my career when I was an investment analyst covering the ad agency holding companies in the 1990s. And I had the privilege of getting to know them both at a very young age and observe and learn from both of them and to follow them through a period of profound change for the media environment and the ad agency business. And there has been a lot of change since I first met you both in the 1990s. First, there was the internet. Of course, at the very dawn of the internet.
Oh, remember that.
No, first there was globalization, right? Reagan, Thatcher, Ted Levitt.
There were the bricks, which you invented, the bricks.
I didn't invest. Jim O'Neill invented the bricks.
And
no, but seriously, I mean, globalization was the first surge from the 60s, from Thatcher. You know, the UK's in such a terrible position at the minute. We're almost where we were back in 1968. So I think that's the first. Anyway, sorry,
My career began in the 90s.
Just shows what a whippersnapper you are.
And I've observed these two gentlemen lead agencies through times of great change, from the internet, you know, into social media, into you know, the age of the influencer, and now we're at this moment of another great change. It may be the greatest change we've seen to impact the media, the consumer media consumption, and the advertising agency business that we've ever seen, which is, of course, the AI tsunami that we are all experiencing. And so I have a lot of questions for you both. I'm just going to dig right in. Sir Martin, you founded S4 not too long ago. 8 years.
8 years ago.
And you founded S4, when you founded S4, AI wasn't a thing.
No, but you've got to remember that DeepMind, Google bought DeepMind in 2014. I remember Eric Schmidt saying at the 2012 Olympics told Matt Britton that it was the first time that the LLM had managed to identify a cat.
Is that right?
Design a cat. So it does go back. Now, I'm not saying we were prescient, don't
Right.
get me wrong, but it was already underway.
But it wasn't really a thing for agencies or for the media business or the advertising business then. Maybe in the more traditional machine learning sense for programmatic it was. But now it is everything. And I'm curious to hear how S4 is adapting to this change and positioning itself to win in the age of AI.
Okay, well, look, the answer is it's a big challenge. I mean, the four fundamental principles, James Monks, and the Monks know this well, our operating brand. Those four got some interference from somewhere.
Sandwiching thing is like super important, but it's hard.
Okay.
Will Lee, we can hear you.
Okay, so the four fundamental principles were...
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Will.
Can somebody turn off Will's mic?
Right, so I'll try and go over the top. So the fundamental principles were digital only. Remember, in 2018, digital was 50% of the market. Today, it's 75%. Okay? Data-driven. Now, that we weren't prescient on that. It wasn't that we figured out AI was coming and we made it data-driven, but we thought data was the heart, the new oil. Okay? We had tagline, faster, better, cheaper. With AI, we've added and more. Mm-hmm. Agonized over the word cheaper because, does that lower? James and I talk about that all the time. Does it create, the not just the impression, the view that you're going to cut the cost, and should it be faster, better, efficient? And then lastly, one brand, critically important. Let me go full throttle. WPP and Omnicom have got it totally wrong.
That was a big change.
Publicis and S4 have got it totally right.
Yeah.
No matrix works perfectly, but the least suboptimal matrix is geography first, client second, and capability third, and they don't get it, right? If you have run a company on the basis of capability, you have internal warfare, and you will never stop it. Duncan Painter, 12 months ago when I was at Cannes, prospective candidate to succeed John Wren at Omnicom. At least that's what some clients thought, and I think he was sold on the proposition. It was one of 1,000 people that John Wren has told it'd be a successor. That didn't get a laugh, actually. It must be
Got one
accurate,
from me.
right? Okay. But you can't do it on capability. You have to pull it together on a geographic basis. So the one brand, Publicis has got it dead right. Mm-hmm. So those fundamental principles are still key. The one other thing I would say is this. I think last year when we came here, it was about what's the impact of AI on creative. This year, it's whether the humans will survive, right? I think they will. I think the general level of creativity will be raised by AI, which is the good news. The problem is, James Quincy said it on the call that I was on, Jeff Sonnenfeld's CEO conference. He said, if everybody can do personalization at scale, how am I going to differentiate Coca-Cola advertising?
Yes.
And the key will be the human. But I think the real issue that we've got to face is not on the creative side. I think at least in the short term, until machines become, if they do, more important or more powerful than human beings, which Eric Schmidt, there's a TikTok film where he says 3 years, okay? Whether he's right or wrong. But for the moment, we'll win on that. The real issue is on media. That's the heart of the holding company model that is beginning to be examined much more rigorously. Publicis made a terrible mistake, in my view, to question the audit or raise questions on the audit of the trade desk. That has raised the issue of transparency yet again. Owen Gottlieb, when he was running Group M, said, we are transparently untransparent. We have to be transparent. If the algorithms are running 900 billion out of 1.2 trillion now, by 2030 they'll be running 85% of it, you have to be transparent. So all those rebates, some call it kickbacks, all those, so the transparent model, fee-based, maybe Brazil will never change. It's the one market where we don't operate a transparent model. That becomes the model. And the holding companies at the moment are reliant on the strength of the media business.
There's a lot to dig into there. David, I want to ask you, so you retired from running an agency business in 2006, but your retirement has not been exactly retirement. I use air quotes for retirement. You have been very active in launching the ads business of Google and AOL during that period of time as an advisor. You mentor and coach many people in the industry. Luckily for me, including myself, you're director for several companies, and you're still very active in the community. So you have a broader view from all those different perspectives on change and what's happening now with AI. I'd love to hear how you think the agency business model is going to evolve in the next 3 years.
Well, first of all, let me say that retirement is overrated, and it's also for amateurs. I can't tell you how happy I am to be on the same stage with Sir Martin. The last time we were on the same stage was at Detroit Ad Crafters, where because all of the 3 holding companies at the time had auto business in Detroit, they had Sir Martin and me and John Wren. And Sir Martin and I wanted to be there. John did not. So I'm glad to be back.
John is coming in for a lot of heat.
I'm glad that Sir Martin and I are wanting to be here. So I've seen lots of change in the business, and I love it. In fact, my personal motto is kiss change on the lips and maybe give it some tongue. I think that AI is going to be the most exciting time. I agree totally with what Sir Martin said. We're going to see, because of AI, a creative revolution. And the creative revolution is also going to be because there is a hunger among consumers worldwide for emotional connections. And as digital took over, and as small screens and clicks and everything took over, the emotional connections that were once there with destination television, once there with commercials, are now there with sports. And we need to bring that back, because without emotional connections, brands can't thrive. But I believe that the combination of AI and the hunger for emotional connections will make creative soar in the next few years. And I believe in agencies on the creative side. We may even have some new titles. I call them prompters and elevators. Prompters will get AI to do its best, and elevators will take it to the next level. AI is genius at generating average, and elevators are genius at making the leaps of faith that take it to the next step. But I also agree with Sir Martin that transparency is coming back. All through my history, I've watched the pendulum shift toward greed and non-transparency, and then back again toward transparency. When the ANA hired K2 to uncover rebates and all of those things, we empowered every procurement company in the world to squeeze agencies because trust was broken. And we're at a stage right now where trust has been broken again, with principal buying and with all the things we know about, and with research and pay for play and all of those things. But trust is the lubricant of our industry, and we need to bring it back. So I think AI will do that. The last thing I think AI will do, which I'm very excited about, is I think it will tear down the walls of the walled garden.
Wow.
Walled gardens.
Yeah. So I sort of agree with all that, except one thing. On the agency structure, I still do a lot of work with HBS, and there's a professor there called Karim Lakhani who runs the badly named, badly branded D3. I think they're going to change it to HBS AI, which is much more better branding. But basically, he's doing a lot of research. And he has a researcher at the moment doing a book and several case studies on how professional service companies are going to change in the era of AI. And when I was talking to her, her hypothesis is you're going to have two layers. You're going to have an upper funnel, if I can put it that way, strategic and creative layer. So we'll probably have, sorry to say, fewer, but probably more highly paid and more highly rewarded strategic and creatives. And then the foundational layer, the implementational layer, more people, but highly automated. And I think we're going to go into two layers. I mean, that's embodied in the sort of model that GM is using, as opposed to the Coca-Cola, let's put it all in one holding company, well, it's in two holding companies now, but and others, because they left 25%, I think it was, of their spend for other contenders. But essentially, you're going to get, I think we're going to pivot to that model. And that model, by the way, the HBS research, is not just about advertising agencies. It's about investment banks. It's about accountants. It's about consultants. It's about lawyers. So I think we're going to see a layering. Now, what David said, I think, at the end is also fundamentally important. So where do we see AI impacting? Visualization and copywriting, collapsing time and cost. Shift the model from time and materials to output-based pricing, asset pricing, use of asset pricing, subscription. Personalization at scale, Netflix model on steroids. Media planning and buying. Many clients were already doing media planning in-house. A lot of clients say to me, we know more about our industry than any 25-year-old media planner or buyer. Apologies to 25-year-old media planner and buyers, right? So those are the three areas. The two other areas that are super interesting are general efficiency. So we have a joint venture with AWS, Adobe, and NVIDIA, where we reduce the cost of outside broadcasting by 80 to 90% using cloud and AI. So a classic example of AI reducing cost and increasing efficiency. And the final thing is what David just touched on, democratizing knowledge. It is so powerful. So Jensen Huang can have 40 reports or 60 direct reports. Last number I saw was 51. He doesn't do one-to-one meetings. AI has given people the information. You know, going back to what I said about the matrix, the interesting thing about AI, if you empower people, you can flatten the organization. And Meta are doing that as well. You know, Mark Zuckerberg, in his direction a few weeks ago, he corrected it last week, but a few weeks ago he said, 50 to 1. He talked about 50 to 1 and small agile teams. The nature of our organization is going to shift dramatically if you empower people with the information. And it's the mucky mucks, if I can put it, who build the silos.
So
hold on. The further up you go, the more resistance you get to cooperation. And let me just give you an analogy, okay, from the World Cup. Lionel Messi is a great individual player, but he plays for the team. What does Cristiano Ronaldo do? He's a great individual player, but he plays for himself. That's the classic. Both are great players. Both would be great in agencies. But the real jewel, and this, I can't say this more because it's so frustrating to see it not happen, is that good people, some share, they go like this. Some people go like this. That's the critical issue. What AI does, its greatest power, is it will break that. And for organizations, that unleashes everybody in the organization. Deeper down you go, the more cooperation you get. So,
I really,
sorry about
no.
I think, let me just add to that, because fully empowered, knowledgeable small teams innovate. The difficulty for the big holding companies will be that they're incredibly hierarchical. So changing that model is going to be really difficult. Where that model is going to work best is in the independent, mid-sized companies, not the giant holding companies.
Well said, Dave.
So,
But you know what? Hold on a sec. What does Cindy Rose do? Let me be very direct. I'm still a shareholder in WPP. What does she do? She has 3.3 billion of debt, which is more than the market capitalization of the company. You know, there just moves in a guy from Accenture into AKQA Chief Strategy Officer. What does he do? He has underpriced equity, heavy debt load. What can he do? He can only do, the only thing they can do is take out cost. That's the only thing, or sell. They don't want to sell because they'll lose their jobs. So they'll cut the cost. It's not a model that is fit for purpose at the moment. So David is exactly right. There's a big opportunity. So anybody in the room that's in that small and medium-sized category has the chance of a lifetime.
So one of the questions I was going to ask was if Kalshi prediction markets made a market in the future of the ad agency business, what would be your most out of consensus bet that you would want to put money on? And I think we've already surfaced it, because in my view, the perspective that you two both offered on AI kind of resurrecting this idea of transparency is the opposite of the direction of travel that I feel like we've been on for the last several years, where there's more principal trading and there's less transparency. And you know, it doesn't just apply to the agencies; it applies also to the walled gardens. So I'm super curious to dig into that and help me understand. I realize that some companies may position themselves differently, but how does the whole industry swing back that pendulum of transparency that seems to have a natural cycle?
Well, let me have a shot at that. So Artur Sadoun is the best leader in the industry as well of the holding companies. So he's a great leader. He's as good as Maurice Levy. Maybe you could even say better. Sorry, Maurice, maybe even better. He has a great strategic story around data and digital. I said story because it's yet really to be proven. We'll see whether LiveRamp makes sense or not. Strategically, I think it works. Whether you can implement it or not is another question. And then he has the right structure. Again, the matrix, country-driven. The problem is the source of profit. You know, people at WPP or Omnicom say he cuts prices to win business. That's not true. What he does, which is super intelligent, is look at the client as a whole. So if you're doing a capability, you know, Brian Lesser will say, I want to make money on the media, right? John Cook will say, I want to make money on the creative. They can't get it together. What Artur does, I think, is look at the client as a whole. Now, so he goes to a client X. Client X says you can have creative production and media. But he levers the pricing, downs the pricing on creative, ups the pricing on media, partly through proprietary trading. Mm-hmm. That works now. I think the video that he put out before Cannes indicates a certain level of panic. What he's saying is, you know, you're on the roller coaster. You're on the Accenture. You know, there's a law of big numbers. You can go up, but then you stop. Okay? You know, Accenture's share price has gone from over 300 to 160. It's halved. And it's a deeply unhappy company. Mm-hmm. I say that publicly. Certainly true. So there's a law of big numbers that's going to, and that's starting to nag away at Publicis. And the fundamental problem is what we just touched on. The source of high profit is media, maybe proprietary trading. They say not. Maybe proprietary trading. When I am told, and maybe there's some Publicis people in the room that can confirm or deny, I am told that they give a client a contract on media. So let's say they're spending 100 billion, or a billion, and they say we're going to spend 100 million of that on proprietary trading, and you will not know what the buy price is. Trade Desk comes along with Open Secura. A client can identify the profit. So the dynamic is right now. It's not going to be right, I think, in 5 years' time.
So, David, I want to ask you a different question, and maybe you can riff on that. Well, I guess first, is there anyone in Publicis who wants to confirm or deny that in the room? The question that I want to ask is that every time there's a technology change or change in consumer habits, consumer media consumption, the sentiment towards the ad agency business turns negative, very negative. And people talk about disintermediation and whether they're still relevant and how will they adapt. And I like to look at the world through the lens of a rational optimist. In my experience, with 30 years covering the ad agency business, is that the agencies do adapt and they do find their way forward, and the complexity of the world benefits them, maybe with some pressure on pricing. David, tell me a story about how AI leads to the golden age, the next golden age of the ad agency holding company.
Oh, what a great question, Michael. So let me go back and say that the dumbest thing that the agency business ever did was to give up commissions. And we gave them up for all the wrong reasons. We gave them up because too many clients, we would staff for the suspected commission, and at the end of the year, they'd cut budgets and we'd be left holding the bag. So we started going into this crazy thing called FTE, full-time equivalent employees and all of that, which set up something I call the meter microscope, where everybody looked at everything and saying, Sir Martin's making too much money, we're not paying for that, whatever it is.
I wish.
Yeah. And that sent us into a profit spiral and a client service spiral, because procurement and the FTE model didn't allow agencies to invest in their clients the way the commission model did. But I'm going to suggest that AI gives us an opportunity to shift from FTEs to performance. Mm-hmm. And if the industry and the agencies are smart enough to make that shift, we can go back to being able to invest in our clients' business rather than scramble to deliver on what they need.
But the problem with that is what we found. So we've shifted several clients to unit pricing, output pricing, and subscription, SaaS model. But the problem is marketing says yes, and when you get to procurement, procurement needs Linus's safety blanket. And they're worried. So you almost have to cap the cost for procurement in order to get them to agree. So they're very nervous about changing the model because it's been the habit of a lifetime. Just one other thing. When I was here in Davos many, many years ago, a woman used to work for me, Lorraine Rees, came up with the frenemy quote with Nikesh Arora, and it got a lot of airtime. The platforms are more our friends than the enemies. And let me just run through the numbers because they're critically important. 900 billion on digital, growing like Topsy, 15-20% this year, slightly less last year. Traditional media, David touched on, going backwards. You have live sport, you're down less, but you're down 0 to 15% depending on you have live sport or not, and it's carrying on. Ellison does Viacom, Ellison does WBD with Paramount. Why is he doing it? 3 becomes 1. IPG surrenders, Omnicom, 2 becomes 1. So these are capacity issues. On the growth side, Google is 300 billion. Meta is 200 billion. Amazon is 75 billion, going to 100. TikTok outside China is 40. Those 4 platforms account for over half of the total market and 2/3 of the digital market. They are here to stay. All this stuff about media fragmentation drives me nuts. It's media concentration. Throw in Alibaba and Tencent, that's the game. The next biggest ad revenue is Microsoft at 19, Apple at 11, Snap at 6, Twitter used to be 5. Look at SpaceX IPO, it's under 2. Walmart's 5, Disney maybe, Netflix 1 or 2. So they're chump change. And they're spending, the 4 biggest hyperscalers are going to spend $5 trillion, according to Goldman, between 2025 and 2030 on infrastructure around AI. They are going to cement in their position. You have to get close to the platforms. You have to be the validator, in my view. And people don't like the phrase, but here you go. You have to be the validator. Because even with Google, it's 300 billion out of 1.2, or 300 billion, 900. There's another 2/3 or 75% elsewhere. They can't recommend on their own. The client will want us to opine on that. So that's the position I think we have to play.
So the question I asked David was, give me the bull case for the golden age. I'll ask you a more specific question. What's the bull case for S4?
Well,
back to my analyst days.
The answer, you were a tiresome analyst, you still are. The bull case is transformation at scale. The sad thing is human beings being what they are, they don't change until they have to. So where do we see transformation at scale? Autos. I did a session with Stella Lee at BYD. That's the reason. They're all scared stiff of a Chinese AV at $10,000 or an EV at $25,000, which they can produce. Financial services, all scared stiff of Nubank, Revolut. We work for Nubank in Mexico and Brazil. They're going into America. Big time shakeup. And then the third area, which is sort of half a vertical, we're beginning to see consumer goods shift. They've priced out after COVID. They went up, pushing up prices 10, 15, 20% per annum, right? They're seeing consumer resistance on pricing, commodity prices, Trump tariffs, Iran dislocation. So they're getting margin pressure. So they're beginning to transform at scale. So the answer is, if clients transform, we'll make it. If they don't, we're in deep shit.
Well, that's probably a pretty good quote to end on. We're nearly out of time. We're getting the hook. Just one quick question for each of you. I want a rapid fire an answer as I can get from each of you. If a young, ambitious, recent college graduate came to you today and said, I'm interested in working in the ad agency business, do you have any advice for me? What would be the one piece of advice that you would give to that young person?
Don't retire.
I like that. I now know, Martin, based on your numbers, why you were upset when I went to Google. One piece of advice I would get is decide what your sweet spot is. Are you a linear thinker? Are you an analytic thinker? Are you a leap of faith thinker? Are you a conceptual thinker? And then figure out how to leverage AI to do any of those things and to really become confident in either of those two areas.
So I say, as I've said several times before, learn Chinese. You don't have to learn Chinese anymore because the Chinese are here to stay. The second largest economy, they will be the biggest economy. Probably you should, Hindu as well. I mean, that's coming up. Learn Spanish. Latin America is the most underappreciated region. It doesn't get its fair share at Cannes. This is more an Anglo-Saxon, European. Asia doesn't get its fair share either. And then the last one is learn code. Now, you don't have to do any of those things with AI, but it's the fundamental principle, which is there's other stuff other than the UK and the US, and that stuff is getting more important. And then the fundamental underpinning, which goes to what David said, is understanding technology. I mean, the simple fact that walk down the Croisette. This used to be a group of French creatives, who got together, smoked Gauloise and had a bottle of wine. Now it's become much more international. But when Casson arrived here, he turned Cannes into CES, and when he arrived at CES, he turned CES into Cannes. And go back to those CapEx figures. Google is spending $200 billion on CapEx this year. It spends on advertising $8 billion, published numbers. So it's 2 weeks CapEx that they spend on. So remember that number. That's telling you where they're going. They're building huge infrastructure. So the Croisette, if it looks tech now, it's going to look more tech in 5 years' time. So learn tech.
Martin, David, thank you so much. I could have kept you here for another hour.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to ADWEEK.